everybody. Welcome to a late episode of Myths and Monsters 17 Necromancers and the Boggy Creek Monster.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be podcasts the other day before yesterday.
Before yesterday.
And
Day before yesterday.
I don't know. It was supposed to
Yeah.
be done on the last day of last month, and we're now in August. But I was up in New Jersey helping my daughter move. So
Yes.
I didn't take my computer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's on me. But a little bit late, but better late than never. So Necromancers and the Boggy Creek Monster. So tell me about the Boggy Creek Monster. I'm so curious.
Yeah. So I stumbled across this, for these myths and legends, I usually like to do ones that I'm like familiar with, like I've covered werewolves and that kind of thing. I decided to step out of my comfort box and just find something completely off the grid that I never heard of before.
All right.
So I got this information from legendsofamerica.com. And so this is about the Boggy Creek Monster.
I've never heard of that. So
I hadn't either. So this creature is in the area of Fouke, Arkansas in Miller County. It's like southeast of Texarkana, which I've never heard of. And, again, called the Boggy Creek Monster.
All right.
So it's a sparsely populated area. So not very many people there. In the forested hills of the Ozarks. Yes. So the Boggy Creek Monster is also referred to as the Fouke Monster. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's Fouke.
Fouke. It sounds right.
Right. So it's been a legend of the area since the 1840s. So a long time. So it's a Bigfoot-like creature, and it's said to be about 7 feet tall. It walks upright and has like a smelly animal-like odor and is covered with hair. So essentially an Arkansas Bigfoot.
An Arkansas Bigfoot. Okay.
Yeah. So the Arkansas version of Sasquatch or Bigfoot, it's this hairy beast, and it has this reputation for killing chickens, livestock, and dogs in the area. But it's never been known to harm humans. So a relatively friendly Bigfoot. Relatively,
I don't want it to kill my dog.
I agree. I said relatively.
Okay. It's all relative. Okay.
It's all relative. So in the late 1860s, the beast allegedly harassed 2 families living outside Fouke, and the legend quickly spread from there. In 1973, so we skipped 100 years.
Wow.
The tale of the Boggy Creek Monster was made into an extremely low-budget movie, so you would probably enjoy it.
I would probably love it. I'll have to find it.
Yes, it's called The Legend of Boggy Creek.
Okay.
And actually, there have been about like 4 movies made about this creature, apparently, and I'm assuming they're all probably low budget.
Okay.
But I feel like you would get a kick out of them.
I love those.
Yes. So in 1997, again, 100 plus years later. Shush, don't laugh at me, all right? There were more than 40 sightings of the Boggy Creek Monster. And in 1998, the report said that the hairy beast was seen walking along a dry creek bed about 5 miles south of town. Whether, it's a legend or reality or whatever, the town of Fouke once capitalized on the legend. So it has signs up around the towns there. There's a gift shop that has a lot of Boggy Creek Monster themed things. But this is not, apparently it's not the case anymore. The locals have probably grown tired of this, people trying to come there and find the Bigfoot and everything like that. But allegedly, it was last seen near the junction of Sulphur and Red Rivers Road. And then I have a few accounts of recent sightings, recent in 2019. So
wow, real recent. Okay.
But I'm going to start at my 2017 sightings.
Okay.
So a man and a wife were driving south of Fouke near Boggy Creek at around dusk. The woman looked towards the northbound lane and saw a real tall, hairy, human-like figure standing at the tree line, just standing there.
Okay.
She became terrified as she looked closer, and the huge figure looked closer at the huge. Oh my goodness! Listen, I've had a drink already.
We like
So
drinks.
I
It's
can't
okay.
talk very well. But looked closer at the huge figure and asked, what was that? And so her husband, who was driving and couldn't look back fast enough to see the figure, didn't get to see it. But the woman doesn't think it was a person. It was too tall. It was too wide, is what she said.
Could have been the Shadow Man. I guess they aren't hairy.
They could be.
It could be hairy.
They could be. Also in 2017, November, a truck driver was traveling south of Fook at approximately noon when he observed what appeared to be a large hair-covered animal in a clear-cut pipeline. So I'm assuming between trees is like where he saw it kind of walking. The figure was moving upright on two legs and was moving between a fence and a deer stand, and it was large and hairy. So like the typical sightings of a Bigfoot.
Are there bears in this area, do you think?
That's a really good question. I don't know if there are bears in Arkansas.
Because a bear on its hind leg, you've seen bears. A bear on its hind leg is wide and hairy and tall.
Right. No, that's a really good point.
Yeah, I don't know.
In 2018, two female witnesses were driving north on the rural highway 71 in the early evening. So it always appears at dusk too, it seems.
Okay.
When they saw a large upright figure run across the road in approximately 4 strides. So, and bears don't run upright.
No, they don't. No.
As they passed by in their car, they could see it running down the middle of the road, which runs perpendicular to the highway. They quickly turned around because it spooked them. But by the time they got back to the side, because they wanted to see it. So by the time they got back to the side of the road, the figure was already out of sight.
It spooked them, but they wanted to go back and look at it.
But they wanted to go back and look at it. Yeah.
That would be me.
I'm going to turn around. No. If I see a giant upright thing run across the road, I'm like, solid, saw that in my lifetime, and I'm out.
I'd be with those girls. What was that? Let's go find out.
You're the first to die in a horror movie.
I am. Plus, I'm blonde, so
First to die.
I know.
100%.
Yeah, that just adds to it. Yeah.
But apparently it was moving very fast and with really great agility. So even I can't imagine a bear up on its hind legs running with good agility,
No. Interesting.
Yeah. So, and then in 2019, November, a couple was driving south of Smackover, which is it's 65 miles south of Fook.
Okay.
And they saw a tall, upright animal dart into the woods at around 11 p.m. So this is late. It's probably dark. The creature looked as though it was about to run across the road when it saw the car and ran back into the woods. So I could still see that being like a bear or whatever. The couple described it as being very large. So at least 6 to 7 feet tall, and definitely not human. Its eyes reflected in the headlights before it ran off with a swiftness that was way too quick for a human. But I feel like most animal eyes reflect light in some way.
Yeah.
Gator eyes do.
Spider eyes. Maybe it was a giant spider.
That's worse than Bigfoot. If I were those two women driving in a car and I saw the Bigfoot behind me, and then I came across a giant spider, I'm turning back to Bigfoot.
Same.
Yes.
Me too. I would not go after the spider. Sorry.
Absolutely not. I'm not going to do it. That's not in my to-do list of life.
So that is interesting.
I'm not done. I have one more.
Okay.
Also in 2019, a young witness said that she saw a monkey man in the woods while sitting in her father's truck along one of the rural roads. The location is near the Sulphur River, where one of the last sightings was, and where it has allegedly been reported over the years. And there are tons of these sightings in the 2000s. And these are just a few of them that I pulled out, but they're all the same thing. They're all super tall. It runs on its hind legs. It's extremely hairy. It's very fast. It's very agile. And now I'm curious if there are bears in Arkansas.
Well, it brings to mind Winona Earp.
Yeah.
Remember the sheriff turned into a shaggy, hairy.
I don't think I've gotten that far.
Never. Oops.
Spoilers.
Sorry about that.
Rude.
Well, it'll remind you of it when you get to that point. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
True. This is true. But that's all I had. It was a very short one, but it was one that I had never heard of. So I was really curious.
I haven't either. I wonder what have they, tried to go in and find it? Have they?
Not that this article said, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, and do people camp in those woods? Because I mean, how weird is that?
Well, right. And I could see using this in like an urban fantasy. You've got a team that's sent out to investigate some large creature that's attacked, livestock or people or whatever. And it turns out to be a werewolf, like
Mhm.
something like that.
Definitely. Yeah. Like a rogue who doesn't know how to, behave. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it could be
Exactly.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I decided to do necromancy.
Nice.
Yeah, interesting. I actually, after starting research today, started a new book. So
Of course you did.
there you go. Yeah, I've got how many ones going now?
Like at least 30.
At least. Okay. So necromancy is the magical or occult art of raising and communicating with the dead.
Okay.
It has been used for thousands of years in civilizations around the world. Early writings about necromancy date back to ancient Greece and Rome.
Nice.
The literal meaning of necromancy is divination by means of a dead body. It comes from the Latin word necromantia, which in turn derives from the Greek word necromantia, spelled a little bit differently, which is the Greek word necros, which means dead body, and mantia, which means divination by means of. So literally divination by means of a dead body.
Cute.
So I don't know that it's cute, but a practitioner's interactions with the dead can be much more complex and can have a physical impact. Boy, we're both struggling.
A little bit.
The world of the living. For example, necromancers may raise the dead to learn secrets, gain forgiveness, or to learn the name of a murderer.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It has been considered dark or black magic, even though many medieval necromancers were clergymen.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The act itself of necromancy isn't evil. A quote, good necromancer's goal is improving the quality of life by exploring death.
Right.
A necromancer becomes a villain when he exploits death.
Yeah. Like for personal gain kind of thing.
Yeah. Ancient necromancers generally raised the dead in order to learn secrets or to gain insight into the future. The earliest literary reference to necromancy is in Homer's The Odyssey.
Okay.
Occasionally, the dead were raised so that the living could gain their forgiveness or direction, or in some cases, just to communicate.
Listen, if I'm dead, don't bring me back to apologize. Like, just let me sleep.
Yeah, for real. Medieval necromancers had the same goals, but in addition, they summoned the dead to manipulate the living and occasionally made use of the bodies of the dead.
Okay.
They generally wanted to gain control of the will, illusions, and knowledge. Over the millennia, the process for reaching the dead have changed dramatically. In some cases, it's very simple. Mediums, for example, may just call upon their spirits. You do the seance.
Yeah.
Or, you could go into a trance without complex rituals or spells, but generally there are complex rituals and spells. Usually they begin with the necromancer creating a circle. Circles are not just a symbol of power, but they're also a means to contain the spirit of the dead, thus protecting the necromancer.
I feel like I need to take notes. I have a necromancer in one of my books, and
do you?
Giving me good information. Yeah,
they are fascinating.
Yeah.
Words might be added to the circle, including inscriptions pointing to the north, south, east, and west. The names of the necromancer, the medium, and the spirits being called. There might be objects needed for the spell placed nearby, like pentagrams, athames, or candles. A lot of times the circle is made with the tip of the athame to draw the circle.
Yeah.
A prayer or a plea to the spirits, angels, or demons, whatever it is the necromancer is invoking to try to help them with this spell.
Right.
Instructions for how the dead should appear and what they should do. Sacrifices might be needed. So animal blood, it could be milk, it could be honey, ashes, flour, salt. You could place those in jugs around or sprinkle them along the circle. Rituals ranging from simply knocking two stones together to burning candles, you name it, might be used. So in the Odyssey that I was talking about, the first written reference we have, the practice had to be done around a pit with a fire at night. And there was a special recipe that he had to follow that was taken with the blood from sacrificed animals that was for the ghosts to drink. And then he had to recite a chant.
Okay. What kind of chant did it say?
It said or prayer. So it could have just
or prayer. Okay.
Prayer. So often this one form of this is death magic, which is using the bones of an ancestor. You know how you can cast bones? You've seen that in movies.
Yeah.
And shamanism is from the past, which is actually where they argue that necromancy developed from, was often about connecting with their ancestors. And then I found this blog. It was fascinating. And she is a witch who calls herself a death witch, and she defines the difference between death witches and necromancy. And I'm just going to quote her. It's fascinating. I personally define death witchcraft as working with and honoring spirits of the dead, ghosts, ancestors, as well as the power of death itself, endings, and resurrections.
Okay.
Death witches reflect upon the concept of death, come to terms with their own death, and work through spiritual, quote, deaths in their lives. We also communicate with the dead regularly. Many of us heal and help the dead, and in return, they aid us in our magical workings.
Nice.
Rather than fearing death, we embrace it as a pivotal point in the cycle of life. How is this different from necromancy? Necromancy is a part of death witchcraft, but it isn't all of that path. Death witchcraft also involves working with death as a force, dead plants, healing the dead, and other aspects of the end of life. Some death witches call themselves necromancers, but others do not.
Okay.
Today, the term necromancy is often reserved for ceremonial magicians who work with the dead. Some modern day practitioners prefer to avoid the term because of its association with fantasy.
Interesting.
And that's
fair enough.
That's the end of her quote.
Yeah.
So another website I found says that necromantic rituals may vary. Many call for performance at night in graveyards under a full moon.
Okay.
I mean, to me, that's kind of cliche, but maybe that's what's needed. I don't know. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
Days of preparation may precede the actual summoning. The necromancer meditates on the dead who will be summoned, precipitates the deities of the underworld, and eats food associated with death, such as the flesh of dogs.
Oh.
Which are associated with the underworld, black bread, and unfermented grape juice.
Okay. Those are all very different things.
Yeah, and none of which I really want to partake of.
I mean, unfermented grape is just grape juice. It's just grape juice.
When you lump it with black bread and the flesh of dogs,
leave those parts out, but that's what I'm saying is they're very different, right?
I don't want to have anything to do with it. Although I am drinking wine, which is fermented grape juice.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is they're all very different things.
In the Middle Ages, it was believed that necromancers ate corpses.
Ugh. That's called cannibalism.
Yeah. Corpses or pieces of corpses and blood from the living or a sacrificed animal might be used in the ritual.
That's gross.
Necromancers protect themselves from the wrath of the dead by performing their rites within magical circles or by wearing amulets.
Got it.
In necromancy, for the reanimation of the corpse itself, which is what we've seen in our fantasy novels, the corpse must be propped upright on its feet to symbolize the return to life.
I can be alive lying down.
Herbs are placed on its chest, which, how do you do that if they're upright? But regardless,
Just
er,
stick. Just
use
tape 'em.
Velcro. We're going to Velcro.
Yeah.
Okay. Herbs are placed on the chest and head to magically restart breathing. The corpse may also be anointed with the necromancer's own blood. So you could use that in your book.
Okay.
The necromancer utters incantations to command the dead person to re-enter its corpse. If the ghost fails to respond, the necromancer threatens it with tortures in the underworld.
Oh, that's fun, cute, adorable. Love it.
Now, I do have a favorite series that deals with necromancy. It is the Grave Witch series, which I have finally finished.
Yeah, it's a good one. I have not finished it yet. No ending spoilers.
Okay. Kalena Price is the author, and she does this wonderful twist on necromancy. The character is a witch who is able to bring back dead spirits for a brief time to find out how they died or get various information for her clients, like, where did you put the treasure? That type of stuff. She's a PI. Yep. And, so she helps the police in trying to figure out who the murderers are, that kind of thing. Which I love that twist on necromancy. It is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that I want to do some kind of urban fantasy on necromancy, which I actually, after I did these notes, started.
Yeah.
I want to twist it up somehow, though. I don't know quite yet what I want to do with it.
Yeah.
But can you imagine a person who has no idea that they're a necromancer going to France and visiting the catacombs?
Oh God. Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I feel like it would be very loud is what I would imagine. Is it just not even like scary, but it would just be loud.
They would all be talking to her.
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy. That would be quite the inciting incident.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Here I'm on my honeymoon.
Yeah.
Honey, all these dead skulls are talking to me.
Ooh, big yikes.
Another book, it was a young adult book. It was called The Summoning by Kelly Armstrong. I started that book. I might have finished it. I don't remember. It's been a long, long time.
Yeah.
But that girl sees ghosts. I don't think I've finished it yet. I go through these phases where I'm into young adult, I'm into fantasy, I'm into urban fantasy, I'm into high fantasy, I'm into crime, I'm into horror. And so eventually I cycle back around. So I'll have to go back to that one, because I think when I read it, there was only one book out, and I think she's got more out now.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I own it too, and I've either read it or it's on my to be read list, which is a mile high. But I'm pretty sure I own it too.
And it has something to do with necromancy. I can't remember exactly how. I did do a search on Google. I just typed in, books with necromancer protagonists, and I got this huge list.
Wow.
And some sound fantastic. So I'll have to quote, research and do some reading on these necromancy books.
Yes.
In Harry Potter, the creation of those Horcruxes by Voldemort could be considered necromancy.
Well, because it deals with the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Game of Thrones, I mean, there's the entire, winter is coming. All of those dead were walking.
Yes. Well, and then even Jon Snow when he comes back.
That's true. And those faceless ones that Arya, she goes into that group and they use the face to become assassins that's some kind of necromancy.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to tell you a story of what I found.
Okay.
When I was researching this.
Oh God.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Oh no. What is it?
All right. So Carl Tanzler, a radiologist in the 1930s, met a patient and fell in love with her. She had tuberculosis. In addition, he had wife and kids too, but that did not stop him from becoming obsessed with this Cuban immigrant girl who had tuberculosis.
Okay.
So she died from the tuberculosis as they did in those days, unfortunately, but that didn't end his love for her. He visited her grave for 2 years every night until he followed her wishes and exhumed her. Yep. He said that she told him that she wanted out. So he dug her up. And he poured wax all onto her corpse.
Okay.
And he put glass eyes in her face.
Oh God. Okay.
And of course, he inserted a tube into her vagina so that he could have sex with her body.
Love it.
For 7 years.
Ugh.
He did this for 7 years.
What? Why? I didn't need that story in my life.
I think it's more necrophilia than it is necromancy, but I had to share.
No, but I don't appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I don't. No. Nope. Nope. You're welcome for making me listen to it.
Just fascinating. It's a real story. They have pictures on the internet. Go look it up.
I don't need pictures.
It's Carl. Let me see if I can spell his name.
Why would I want pictures?
You see her. They've got a picture of her body.
No, that's fine.
Wax on
I
it.
don't need it. That poor woman needs to go back to rest.
It's Carl Tanzler. Carl is Carl. Tanzler, Tanzler.
Well, that's something I'll never look up. Thank you.
Yeah, he's a pretty weird dude.
Yeah, to say the least, I guess.
Yep.
Appreciate.
But that's all I
don't appreciate that.
That's all I've got. I'm excited to start my new book.
Well, I was very excited about some of those details as well. I could have done without that last story, but
you could have your main character do that. She says no.
No, the silence is heavy. I think
the silence is heavy.
Is like, answer enough.
What the hell are you talking about, Mother?
Yeah, no, I can do without that. Anyway, I do think it was really interesting. It gives me ideas for my own book that I am writing right now. So it's my Aiden book.
If you want to do research, there are a lot of different forms. I mean, you can actually look up spells that people, there are witch websites and things that talk about how to become a necromancer. So if you want to go and look at those for your character to see what he might be doing in his practice of necromancy,
right,
you might find something that you can twist up a little bit and make it interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's probably a good idea. The magic in that world is very interesting, but I think rituals and stuff that have been put into legends and things would be really useful.
Definitely. So that's all we've got for our latest episode of Myths and Monsters. We'll have another one at the end of September, which is also going to be difficult because that's about the time Dragon Con is. So we will have to.
You mean the end of August?
We're in August, the end of August. Dragon Con is at the beginning of September.
Yes.
Wow. So we will have to plan ahead a little bit better next time so that we can make sure it comes out when it's supposed to come out.
Yeah, definitely.
Your birthday is actually September 1st. So
it sure is. Yes. Mm-hmm. I'll be old.
You're not old. Good Lord. Good Lord.
Old as dirt.
Wow. All right. Well, we will see you next time for our regular episodes of Eat, Drink, Write. But we will see you next month for the next episode of Myths and Monsters.
Yeah, thanks guys for listening.